It took me years to understand the block phase of the throw and how to use my lower half as a pitcher. And today I'll tell you all the secrets of the block and the lower half, and I'll give you a simple 3-drill progression that you can incorporate into your routine that will allow you to transfer energy up the chain better and have the best lower half you've ever had. My name is Charles Bernard. I'm a former Division I pitcher, CEO of Storm Performance, and pitching coach at Ascent Athlete, where I work with pro pitchers, college pitchers, and high school pitchers every single day. So the biggest mistake I made, and I think a lot of people make as well, when addressing the block phase of the throw, is overlooking the relationship between the knee and the hip. In my case, I would only look for a stable knee, which I thought was correlating to an efficient way of transferring energy up the chain. However, we must address the ankle, the knee, and the hip relationship in order to understand how efficient the block really is. Now, having a stable knee is one part of the answer, but being able to transfer that energy all the way up to the front hip so that we can complete rotation is what we should really aim for. In my case, and in the case of a lot of guys who tend to favor external rotation of the hip or tend to jump off the rubber or push off with their back leg, you'll often see a budge or a slight drift of the front hip before completing the rotation. This inefficiency happens as a byproduct of how we use our back hip to send us into rotation and also how we are predisposed to move as athletes. If we're not able to rotate well from the backside, we tend to push or jump off the rubber, which leads to a lot of other issues down the chain. What we want instead is our back leg initiating rotation and our front hip accepting that rotation as soon as our front foot touches the ground so that we can complete the rotation of our hips and throw as hard as we can. If you're having this issue or you feel like you're not transferring energy up the chain efficiently, here's a simple 3-drill progression that'll help you fix this and transfer energy like you never have before. The first drill is a simple 10-toes drill with a little twist to it. We'll swift our hips from side to side and pick our heel up from the ground. We want to imagine like we have a pole in the middle of our body so our hips are strictly rotating around it and not moving from side to side. After rotating a few times, we'll plant our heel down and throw. The point of emphasis here is not letting our front hip shift or budge at all when we start our rotation. We really want to force our back hip to send us into rotation and then complete this rotation as soon as our front heel touches the ground with our front hip. I really love that first drill because it's easy to do it right, and by eliminating the linear momentum component, we really focus on the rotational aspect and not shifting our hips that way and really sending them into rotation. If you plan on doing this drill progression before throwing, I do 4 to 5 reps with a 7-ounce ball and then 4 to 5 reps with a 5-ounce ball and then move on to the next drill. The second drill is very similar to the previous one, but we'll add a slight linear momentum component to it. I like to do this one on the mound, but you can totally do this one on flat ground as well. We'll set up in a pretty narrow rocker stance. We'll have feet a little bit wider than shoulders width. I prefer setting up with an angle as opposed to completely sideways because it allows my hips to rotate better, but everybody's different. So I recommend experimenting with what works and feels best for you. Then we want to make sure that we maintain posterior tilt in our pelvis, which gives us more room in the hip joint, aka just helps us rotate better. From there, we'll do the same thing as we did in the first drill. Make sure that our back hip sends us into rotation and that we are completing rotation of our hips without letting them slide or drift. Same thing here. I'd go 4 to 5 throws with the 7-ounce ball and then 4 to 5 throws with a 5-ounce ball and then moving on to the last drill of our drill progression. For the third and final drill, we will blend it all together into something that looks a lot more like a normal throw. Once again, I prefer doing this one on the mound, but you can totally do it on flat ground as well. So this drill, same stance as the previous drill, except after doing a few figure eights, we will pick up our foot into our leg lift and then once again, make sure that our back hip is not pushing, but rotating, and that we complete that rotation with our front hip without letting it slide or drift. In that drill, I find super helpful to think about keeping my hips closed as long as possible and then snapping my hips as late as I can. Once again, with that one, we will go 4 to 5 throws with the 7 and then the 5. But if you have like a higher intent day and you want to speed up the arm a little bit, you could do 4 to 5 with a 5-ounce and then 4 to 5 with like a 3.5 ounce ball. Once you're done with the progression, you can go ahead and get started with whatever throwing you have left on the day, and you can incorporate that pre-throw routine every single day if you feel like it's making you better. One thing you need to remember when working on this is that when you just think of keeping your hips closed as long as you can and then snapping them, it tends to help your body to self-organize a lot better than when we're doing a ton of reps at lower intensity and being super internally focused, like focusing on what our body's doing at slower speeds. So if you find yourself like struggling to incorporate those moves and feeling good about how we're transferring weight from our backside to our front side and then just completing rotation, just kind of focus on keeping the hips closed and go. So here it is, as promised, a simple 3-drill progression that will help you transfer energy up the chain like you never have before. And if you find this helpful, I ask that you just please share this with somebody, a friend, a teammate that could use this information so that we can help as many people as possible along the way. That would really mean the world to me, and I hope that this drill progression can help you as much as it helped me and some of the athletes that I've worked with. Thanks for watching through, and I'll see you in the next video. Write your own story.